Japan is an archipelago of more than 14,000 islands, and most of the world pictures it as one thing, a single strip of cities on Honshu, connected by bullet trains, whose island story begins and ends with the four main land masses. That picture is wrong. More than 400 of those islands were once inhabited and are now empty. Some were abandoned overnight. Some were sealed by government order. Some were physically erased from maps. There is an island off the coast of Nagasaki where 5,000 people lived in concrete high-rises, and the entire population vanished in 4 months. There is an island in the inland sea that was removed from every official map during the war, and its factories were buried under concrete. There is an island in the Pacific 800 miles south of Tokyo where civilians have not been permitted for 80 years. Stay for number 1 because that one is a group of islands the Japanese government claims as its own, but no Japanese citizen has been allowed to visit in 70 years. Consider how deep the abandoned record runs. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport, and Tourism maintains a registry of uninhabited islands that lists more than 6,000 named islets with no permanent population. The National Institute for Environmental Studies has documented more than 150 islands that had permanent residents within the last century and have since been entirely depopulated. Later came the mining closures of the 1970s, then the military restrictions, then the nuclear evacuation, each leaving another island empty. The question with almost every site is the same: why did everyone leave, and why can no one go back? Number 11. Miyakejima lies in the Izu Islands chain, roughly 110 miles south of Tokyo, and it is one of the few places in Japan where the island itself poisoned its own people. Mount Oyama, the volcano at the center of the island, erupted repeatedly through the summer of 2000, releasing between 20 and 50 tons of sulfur dioxide gas per day. The gas settled over the residential areas at ground level, making the air toxic. In September of 2000, the Japanese government ordered a mandatory evacuation of all 3,600 residents. Most of them relocated to Tokyo and lived in temporary housing for more than 4 years. The evacuation order was not lifted until February of 2005. When residents returned, they returned to an island that was still venting poison. The government issued every resident a gas mask and installed permanent monitoring stations that sound alarms when sulfur dioxide concentrations exceed safe levels. Flights are still canceled when gas levels rise. The southern coast near the crater remains permanently restricted. The population has never recovered to its pre-evacuation level. Number 10. Okunoshima lies in the Seto Inland Sea off the coast of Takehara in Hiroshima Prefecture. Between 1929 and 1945, the island was the site of a secret Imperial Japanese Army poison gas factory that produced more than 6,000 tons of mustard gas and tear gas. The operation was so classified that Okunoshima was physically removed from all official Japanese maps during the war. Locals were sworn to secrecy under military law. Workers who developed chemical burns and respiratory diseases were ordered never to speak of the cause. After the war, the factory buildings were dismantled, the storage vaults were sealed with concrete, and the Japanese government did not publicly acknowledge what had happened there for decades. Today, the island is known as Rabbit Island for the feral rabbit population that descended from test animals released after the war. The concrete ruins of the poison gas factory still stand behind fencing with warning signs. The chemical storage foundations are sealed. The Okunoshima Poison Gas Museum, opened in 1988, documents the island's history, but the sealed vaults and underground storage areas have never been fully surveyed. Number 9. Nara Dreamland in Nara Prefecture was once the most visited amusement park in western Japan. Modeled on Disneyland, it opened in 1961 and operated for 45 years before closing in 2006 due to declining attendance. For 11 years, the park stood abandoned behind perimeter fencing, its roller coaster tracks rusting, its parking lots cracking under weeds, its fake Main Street USA facades rotting in the rain. It was finally demolished in 2017, but it was only one of more than 30 large abandoned theme parks across Japan. The Nippon Yugen Registry, which tracks abandoned entertainment sites, recorded in 2023 that at least 17 parks remain standing with no public access. Gulliver's Kingdom near the foot of Mount Fuji, the Seibu Sea Lion Park in Saitama, and the Expoland complex in Osaka are all still standing, fenced off, and slowly being consumed by vegetation. These are not technically islands, but each one functions like one, a sealed perimeter that no one enters and from which nothing returns. Number 8. The Kuril Islands, known in Japan as the Chishima Reto, are a chain of more than 50 islands stretching from the northeastern tip of Hokkaido to the southern tip of the Kamchatka Peninsula. Japan held the southern Kurils, which it calls the Northern Territories, until the Soviet Union seized them in the final days of the Second World War in August 1945. 17,000 Japanese residents were deported. The islands of Etorofu, Kunashiri, Shikotan, and the Habomai islets have been under Russian administration ever since. On October 16, 2025, Russia suspended Japan's special sea passage rights near Shikotan and Habomai, further restricting access for former Japanese residents and their descendants. No Japanese civilian can visit these islands without Russian permission, which is rarely granted. The former Japanese settlements are gone. The Japanese government maintains its claim to the islands, but the islands themselves remain beyond reach. Number 7. Iwo Jima, officially Kyoto, lies roughly 750 miles south of Tokyo and is administered as part of the Ogasawara subprefecture. The island covers 8 square miles. Its highest point, Mount Suribachi, rises 528 feet above the southern coast. The Battle of Iwo Jima in February and March of 1945 lasted 36 days and killed roughly 26,000 people, including nearly 7,000 Americans. Before the battle, the Japanese military forcibly evacuated the civilian population in July 1944, and no civilians have permanently settled on the island since. The island is now a Japanese maritime self-defense force base, with a naval airstrip that occupies much of the flat central plain. There is no civilian airport, no ferry service, and no civilian population. Civilian access is restricted to those attending memorial services for fallen soldiers, construction workers for the Naval Air Base, and meteorological agency staff. The black sand beaches where American forces landed are not accessible. The Japanese government has made no plan to reopen the island to civilian settlement. Number 6. Yonaguni Island is the westernmost inhabited island of Japan, sitting 68 miles off the east coast of Taiwan in the East China Sea. It has a population of roughly 1,600 people and is accessible by air from Naha and Ishigaki. What the government does not advertise is that Yonaguni is being rapidly transformed into a military installation. In 2016, Japan's Ground Self-Defense Force established Camp Yonaguni on the island, stationing a coastal observation unit to monitor the sea approaches to Taiwan, which lies only 68 miles to the southwest. Radar arrays and surveillance facilities have been expanded on the southern coast. Large sections of the island's coastline are now behind military fencing. The presence of the GSDF has altered the character of the island from a remote diving destination to a strategic military outpost, and further expansion is planned. Residents report that areas that were once open for hiking and fishing are now posted with restricted access signs. Number 5. Okinotorishima is the southernmost island in Japanese territory, an uninhabited coral reef roughly 1,070 miles south of Tokyo, administered as part of Ogasawara Village. At high tide, the land above water consists of 2 small rocks, the larger measuring roughly 3.8 meters across. In 1987, Japan constructed a concrete platform and steel breakwater around the larger rock to prevent it from eroding below the surface, because under international law, a nation's exclusive economic zone depends on the existence of habitable land. China disputes Japan's claim that Okinotorishima qualifies as an island, arguing it is merely a rock with no natural capacity for human habitation. The Japanese government has invested millions in reinforcing the reef, installing observation equipment, and maintaining a research platform, but civilian access is completely prohibited. The nearest inhabited island is more than 400 miles away by sea. Number 4. The Senkaku Islands are a group of 8 uninhabited islets in the East China Sea, roughly 120 miles northeast of Taiwan. Japan incorporated the islands into its territory in 1895. They are claimed by the People's Republic of China, which calls them the Diaoyu Islands, and by Taiwan, which calls them the Tiaoyutai. The Japanese government nationalized 3 of the islands in 2012, purchasing them from a private Japanese owner for roughly $26 million. No civilians live on any of the islands. The Japanese Coast Guard maintains a continuous patrol presence in surrounding waters and intercepts all unauthorized vessels. The largest island, Okinotorishima, covers roughly 1.2 square miles and holds the remains of a bonito processing station that operated in the early 20th century. The last permanent residents, a family of fishermen, left in 1940. The Japanese government has designated the islands as national government property and has made no plan for any civilian access or settlement. Number 3. Takeshima, known internationally as the Liancourt Rocks, consists of 2 main islets and roughly 30 smaller rocks in the Sea of Japan, roughly 130 miles northwest of the Japanese mainland. The islets are administered by South Korea, which maintains a permanent garrison of Coast Guard personnel, a lighthouse, and a helicopter pad. Japan claims the islets as inherent Japanese territory and disputes the Korean presence. The Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs maintains an active campaign asserting Japanese sovereignty, but no Japanese citizen can visit the islets. There is no commercial transportation from Japan. Korean fishermen who operate in the area do so under Korean permits. The Japanese government has never organized or authorized any civilian landing, and the political dispute between the two nations ensures that no resolution is likely. The islets stand as a group of islands that Japan claims to own, but that no Japanese person can set foot on. Number 2. Hashima, known as Jima, or Battleship Island, lies 9 miles off the coast of Nagasaki. Mitsubishi purchased the island in 1890 and developed it as a coal mining facility. At its peak in 1959, the island held roughly 5,200 people on a footprint of 16 acres, making it the most densely populated place on Earth. Workers lived in concrete apartment blocks up to 9 stories tall. When petroleum replaced coal, Mitsubishi announced the closure of the mine on the 15th of January 1974. The entire population left within 4 months. The island was sealed. For 35 years, no one was permitted to land. During the war years, Korean and Chinese forced laborers had worked in the undersea mines, under conditions that a UNESCO World Heritage Committee report described in 2017 as severe. South Korea objected to Japan's World Heritage nomination on the grounds that the Japanese government was not adequately disclosing the history of forced labor. Japan's nomination was approved in 2015 on the condition that the history be fully presented, and in 2017, UNESCO expressed strong concern that Japan was not fulfilling that commitment. In 2009, a small southern section was opened to guided tours, but more than 90% of the island remains behind barricades. The apartment blocks are crumbling, staircases have collapsed. Number 1. The Habomai Islands are a cluster of small islets northeast of Hokkaido that were part of Japan until the Soviet invasion of August 1945. The islands had a small Japanese fishing population. They were seized along with the rest of the southern Kurils, and the Japanese residents were deported. Russia, as the successor state to the Soviet Union, has administered the islands since 1945. Japan claims them as inherent Japanese territory and lists them in every official government publication as occupied. But the practical reality is absolute. No Japanese civilian has been permitted to live on or freely visit the Habomai Islands in 80 years. In October 2025, Russia suspended Japan's last remaining access, right? The special sea passage arrangement that had allowed former residents to visit graves and ancestral sites. The islands are uninhabited. The former Japanese settlements have been demolished or reclaimed by nature. The Japanese government files annual diplomatic protests, but the islands remain under Russian military administration, and the prospect of any Japanese civilian returning is, by every realistic assessment, zero. Japan was never only 4 main islands. People lived on rocks in the middle of the ocean, built cities on 16 acres of sea-battered concrete, and raised families on islands that were seized, poisoned, or erased. 11 abandoned islands, and not one of them has been fully reclaimed, reopened, or explained. And how many more have been forgotten entirely is its own open question. If you want to see the abandoned and forbidden islands of Japan documented one by one, this is the channel that does it.